If you're planning to buy your Rolex in 2026, how long will you have to wait to get the piece that you really want? You see, most collectors are still working on 2025 wait times, but times are changing and demand and supply is shifting slightly. And I think that the wait times for 2026 are changing in ways that people are not expecting. At least that's what my local AD told me here in Bangkok when I was just asking her out of curiosity how business was and how many people were actually still interested in buying Rolexes right now. So in this video, we're going to cover all the popular models from Rolex and what wait times she suggested are kind of realistic for you getting that Rolex on your wrist. So what has changed in the world of Rolex wait times? Now, while the secondary market, or the grey market, whichever you prefer, has definitely cooled down since 2021, there are some Rolex high pieces which are still a little bit difficult to get. And this is based on a couple of different things, but most importantly, authorized dealership behavior, market tracking, and allocations that have already been promised to other VIP buyers. But with all that in mind, the AD that I spoke to on WhatsApp told me that these are some realistic expectations for each piece going into 2026. Now, just to be clear, this does depend on the relationship that you have with your AD, where you are in the world, and also how much you've spent at that authorized dealership before. But these times will give you a rough estimation of how long it will take you from going into the AD and registering interest to actually getting the Rolex that you want on your wrist. Now, I think the best place for us to start is probably the Rolex Dweller. It's the first new Rolex in a very long time, and it's kind of the new unobtainium, right? It's going to be pretty much impossible to get unless you have a really solid relationship with your AD. Now, the Land Dweller, at least for the meantime, is pretty much for VIPs only. It's going to be very difficult for you to actually get an allocation unless you've spent a significant amount with the AD already. So with the Land Dweller, you've kind of got three options. The first option is just pick something else. The second option is, do you want to actually wait 4 or 5 years for the Land Dweller? If so, then good luck to you and you've got more patience than me. Thirdly, go to the grey market and pay around roughly $9,000 more and get it on the day that you want it. However, the benefit of getting it from the AD is you know for a fine fact that it is 100% authentic and you come out of the 5-year wait with a PhD in patience. Next up on the list is the stainless steel Rolex Daytona. Now, this is still very much a high piece. And even though the Land Dweller is kind of the new hot girl in class that everyone kind of has their eyes on, the Daytona still has that charm and it's kind of iconic at this point. Which means that if you're a brand new customer, then it's pretty much impossible. Now, another strategy you could take is to either go two-tone or precious metals. These are said to be much more accessible and you're probably going to wait around 6 to 18 months. However, they're obviously a lot more expensive. But if that's your type of thing, then in some cases you can even buy them straight out of the shop window. I literally had this experience myself in Hong Kong, so it is possible. And actually, on the topic of Hong Kong, this is the perfect time for a wrist check. This is the exact watch that I was wearing. This is the Evermont 38 by Emerton Scott. This is my company. I actually designed the watch from scratch. You can check it out in the description. It comes in 2 colors. This is Celestial Blue, and it also comes in Imperial Green. So yeah, feel free to check those out. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. But anyway, let's get back to the video. So next up is the Sky-Dweller. Now, the Sky-Dweller is still one of Rolex's most impressive and complex travel watches. And the demand for the green and blue dial is still absurdly high. Now, for those two pieces specifically, you're going to be looking at around 3 to 6 years, even if you're a well-established client for the AD, which means for new buyers, this is essentially a fantasy piece. It's pretty much impossible to get unless you are very much in the door with your Rolex AD. However, there is one little caveat that if you do not mind the two-tone version, that could be your foot in the door. Specifically the two-tone version and also the full precious metal Sky-Dweller, those two pieces are a little bit more accessible. Now, just because they're not as desirable doesn't mean you still won't wait. You're probably going to be looking at roughly between 3 months to 2 years realistically. However, I will say that it did happen to me in Hong Kong again, where it was offered to me on the day with no previous history with that AD before. Okay, next, the GMT-Master II. Now, the GMT-Master II is still kind of the creme de la creme of the Rolex lineup when it comes to world travel anyway. It's kind of an icon at this point. And to be honest, from what I discussed with the AD, it's not going to change in 2026. Now, the Pepsi and the Batman are still kind of elite tier. They are pretty much the hardest ones to get. And even for VIP clients, you're still going to be looking at around 2 to 5 years to get one of those two pieces. Which means that for a customer with zero history, you're going to be pretty much screwed. However, the two-tone root beer slightly flips that equation. In fact, that particular piece is probably one of the most overlooked cheat codes to actually getting a decent GMT from Rolex. Because where the Pepsi and the Batman are this multi-year expedition of patience, the root beer, you're probably going to get one in less than 12 months. Now the Submariner is still very much the backbone to Rolex's sports range. And while wait times are supposed to get a little bit better, they're still going to be very real. Now the classic black sub is probably going to take you anywhere, depending on where you live and your relationship with the AD and obviously what you've spent before with an authorized dealer, anywhere between 6 to 18 months. Now that's a healthy wait, but achievable. Now if you wanted a Starbucks with a green bezel, then that is going to be a slightly longer wait, which again, depending on your relationship with the AD and a number of other factors, you're probably going to be looking at anywhere between a year to 3 years. Which means that ultimately, if you want one of the more desirable Submariners from Rolex, there is a little bit of a wait involved. Now a no-date sub could potentially be your quiet way through the back door, which basically means they're a little bit less desirable, meaning you can get the Submariner that you want in between 6 to 12 months. No date, no wait. Should probably trademark that. Now the Oyster Perpetual is admittingly a hit and miss. Now the celebration bubble dial height may have settled slightly, but do not mistake that for low demand. And that's because the Oyster Perpetual is still quietly one of the most competitive Rolexes you can try to get. Most OP configurations are still taking around 6 to 18 months to actually acquire. This being based on what dial configuration you want and also where you're trying to buy it. And the reason it's so competitive is simply because the Oyster Perpetual is the most entry-level Rolex you can get. It's the Rolex that you can use to get your foot in the door at the lowest possible price and also getting a watch which you can pretty much wear every day. Next up is a watch that I kind of have a soft spot for, the Explorer. Now based on the conversation with that AD, the Explorer seems to be picking up in terms of interest. More people seem to be interested in acquiring an Explorer than ever before. And the reason I think more and more people are starting to really appreciate the Explorer from Rolex is because it comes in two great sizes, 36 and 40mm, and also it's just such a classic look. Now I think there's going to be more and more appreciation for the Explorer over time as we move into 2026, but I think if you get in early now, you're going to be able to get a piece for between 3 to 9 months. I don't think the appreciation has built up enough yet where it's going to extend to super long wait times. Serious watch collectors love the Explorer for a reason, and that reason is it's simple, it's honest, and it is going to last you a lifetime. And it's also not super difficult to get. It's going to be pretty much the perfect purchase for you to get your foot in the door with the AD and then build a relationship from that, again, if that's what you want to do. Next up is the Yacht-Master. So the Yacht-Master does not get the same level of hype or interest as the GMT-Master II or the Submariner, which is why it makes the Yacht-Master such a great strategic move. Now, should you buy a watch just to try and get on your AD's good side and to build a relationship? I think that's pretty stupid, to be completely brutally honest. Or if you have the money to do it, then all power to you. I, however, do not. But if you like the Yacht-Master anyway and you want to buy more watches from Rolex afterwards, then it could be the way to go. The platinum bezel steel version tends to sit at around 12 to 24 months, still competitive, but not insanity. Meanwhile, the two-tone Yacht-Master continues to appear far more frequently in boutique windows, and in many cases can pretty much be picked up instantly if you have a little bit of luck. Now the reality is the Yacht-Master is not the most popular piece in the Rolex lineup. However, if you like it, then you can buy it. And you don't have to wait a lifetime to get it. By the way, if you're still watching this video, then you may appreciate what I'm trying to do here and the videos that I make, so consider subscribing or just pop a like on this video if you like it, therefore I know that I'm doing something right. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Now, the Datejust. Now the Datejust is one of the easiest and most realistic Rolex models to buy heading into 2026. And this is because, according to the AD that I spoke to, they are starting to up production to get more and more people involved and invested in the Rolex brand. Now this, of course, again depends on the type of configuration that you're looking for. Now most standard configurations can take anywhere between 3 to 12 months, which means that the Datejust is one of the fastest ways to get a Rolex on your wrist. But don't be fooled if you still want a dream configuration like a mint green dial with a fluted bezel, because this is still going to take you roughly around 2 to 3 years to acquire. So ultimately the Datejust can be very easy or very hard depending on the type of dial and the type of configuration that you want. Now to give you a little bit more clarity here, the simple stainless steel version with smooth bezels and standard dials are usually the fastest path, often just a few months. Now add one level up and add a fluted bezel and the wear time gets longer, and then add the Jubilee bracelet and you're starting to look at anywhere between 2 to 3 years. Now if you want to Datejust pretty much instantly, then you can go two-tone and it's going to be on your wrist from anywhere between 1 to 3 months. But here's the truth, wait times for Rolex according to the AD that I spoke to in 2026 are not disappearing, but they are supposed to be getting a little bit better. And also with Rolex putting a little bit of pressure on these ADs to stop playing silly games and actually giving new customers pieces that they want instead of making them buy, pieces that are less desirable just so they can increase their profit margins. This is going to open up opportunities for new customers like you and me. So going into 2026, we essentially have two options. The first option is to play the AD game and buy smaller pieces and slowly build that relationship with the authorized dealer. Or option two is go to the grey market and get the piece that we want, but just pay the premium. No politics, no games, no patience needed. Now for a lot of collectors, you can get a really great watch at a much lower price with very similar finishing from the likes of Omega, Grand Seiko, Zenith and IWC. And those brands help you get a really great watch with exquisite finishing with much less stress and zero wait time. Now obviously everyone's different, there's no right or wrong answer, and ultimately just buy whatever you want. But if you found this video valuable, then please consider subscribing. There's so much content that we have planned for the end of 2025 and going into 2026, which I'm really excited to share with you. So if you like this video, you'll most certainly like what we've got coming up next. But I just want to leave you with a really quick question. Knowing the wait times that the AD has mentioned to me for 2026, does this make you want a Rolex more or less? How do you feel about it? I know some people love Rolex, but some people are not quite as fond of how they treat their customers. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. But on that note, I'll see you in the next video.